Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for the first roundtable of our season. We're focusing on Colorado's agricultural growth after a complex time of disruptions this past year. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Danielle Trotta. I'm the new Colorado Proud Program Manager. And while I've actually been with the department for 3 years, I'm just now joining the Colorado Proud team, and I'm very excited to be in this role and excited to facilitate this today. So we certainly have a lot to talk about. Obviously, a smooth sea has never made a skilled sailor. So with the year-long theme of growing, evolving, and thriving, today's roundtable will focus on vulnerability that small businesses are experiencing after all the 2020 disruptions. We have a great group of experts who will be applying last year's learnings and sharing some advice on how small businesses can continue to flourish. So while we're focused on small business today, the advice here will be relevant for all ag professionals, from retailers to growers and ranchers who have experienced physical and operational and cultural shifts. So it's great to see so many familiar names joining us, as well as so many new names today. I'm excited for you guys to meet our panelists here. I'd like to invite each panelist to give a brief description and introduction of themselves and share a couple of examples of how they've grown and evolved from this past year. First, let's start with Elizabeth Mosier, who founded Loco Foods Distribution and works with small businesses around the state, connecting them with distributing and locally made and grown products, or distributors with locally made and grown products.
Thanks, Danielle. Again, I'm Elizabeth Mosier, and our company, Loco Food Distribution, is a wholesale distributor of locally grown and locally made products, and we serve wholesale buyers between Fort Collins and Colorado Springs. We serve primarily grocery stores. We do a lot of work with the chain grocery stores and a lot of independent grocery stores, as well as a lot of different markets, et cetera. And so we do some food service, and this year we saw that we didn't do as much food service because of the crazy year it was. And so we ended up focusing a lot more on our grocery. We work with about 140, give or take, Colorado brands. We do some produce, obviously seasonally, and a little bit of meat. We're interested in doing more of that, and we're interested in, we're actually starting to work with a collaborative that we're hoping to bring on, more produce, et cetera. But mostly we work with grocery and processed products. So a lot of salsas and sauces and beverages, et cetera. And yeah, it's been quite a year. We've been really fortunate that we have been able to keep our team. And for most of our vendors, we're seeing that they've remained generally pretty healthy as well. Some folks have lost more sales than others, depending on their customer bases with us, but and then some of them are having supply chain issues. So that's kind of where we've been over the last year, kind of in broad strokes. And that's what we'll be focusing on again this year. So there we are.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, I'd like to introduce Chef Jason Morse from 5280 Culinary. He has many roles as a chef, a food business entrepreneur, and a community partner. Go ahead, Jason.
Hello. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Beautiful, sunny, wonderful day in Colorado. Chef Jason Morse, I own 5280 Culinary. We founded our business in 2010, actually, to really start as a consulting arm. I'm a country club chef, French trained chef, ran hotels, restaurants, all that good stuff. Decided to branch out and take that risk, becoming a small business owner. I wanted to have more money in my pocket and take tons of vacations. So I became a small business owner, right? Which is like the best small business owner joke in the world. I wanted to start our business really to be able to do things differently. We wanted to be differentiators. We wanted to help define certain segments, whether we were working with agriculture, school nutrition, local producers, manufacturers, growers, ranchers, farmers. We felt very early on that there was a need for us to give our global support to the agriculture community on a consulting standpoint, really to help them focus their efforts to be storytellers, to get the word out about how they raise beef and how they grow fruits and vegetables and fiber and different things we do here in Colorado. We grew very, very fast, and we adapted along the way very quickly to realize that you know, we always have done A, but we found ways to add B and C to the mix to really grow the breadth of what our business does. And it's cool because being a chef, you learn to think on your feet a lot. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to grow and adapt and change to really help tell the stories, do those types of things, and be beneficial and impactful in what we do. Throughout that process, we also had an opportunity to develop some products, to sell some barbecue products. So we sell a line of barbecue products. We started here locally in Colorado at 3 Ace Hardware locations, and we sell now to a little over 3,000 locations across the United States. So we had to adapt very quickly and learn, you know, what the needs of consumers were globally, locally, and how we could be a part of that world, so to speak. And the beautiful part of that growth is the learning process that happened along the way. It helped me better understand how to tell people stories, how to partner with different groups. You know, I'm also the chef and national spokesperson for Ace Hardware too. So I learned and kind of created a niche within, I mean, hardware store company has a chef. Like, whoever thought that that would be possible? But we found ways to partner and work together. And the beauty of that partnership allowed us a lot of opportunities to really find ways to advocate for agriculture in a non-confrontational way, very subtle, smooth, and easy while we were out grilling, barbecuing, cooking. So that has been really cool. And you know, the COVID world was great for us because it helped us once again learn how to adapt. And that's the only reason I mean it was great. We all understand it was a show, right? But it helped us adapt, and it taught us once again to really focus on perfecting what we do, ABC, but then adding DEF to expand our horizons and find ways to be a better help, to be a better partner, and find ways to deliver the message better to consumers. We're, you know, the backdrop of what you see here, this is our studio that we built here in Denver because we learned consumers wanted a digital experience. And now, as we get back into what we're doing, it's awesome because they want A, B, C, D, and the digital experience. So we've learned to adapt. It's my whole story in a nutshell.
Very good. Thank you, Chef Jason. And finally, our very own Commissioner of Agriculture, Kate Greenberg. Go ahead, Kate.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. And it's great to be both with you, Chef Jason, and Elizabeth on this panel, and everybody out there tuning in. You know, it's something to start thinking about the last 14 months and what we've all been through. And so much of what Jason and Elizabeth have talked about, you know, I see the Department of Ag where we've kind of been the backdrop wherever we can to a lot of that work. So in thinking back to March of 2020, it was emergency response through and through. Danielle remembers, our team remembers, we were focused on supply chains, on ag worker health, on keeping business open and the essential functions of agriculture and food across the state. But what we did at the same time, even back in March of 2020, as we were building our response, our emergency response structure, we also built a recovery structure almost from week 1. So from the get-go, we were focused on, you know, we'll get out of this at some point, who knows when, but when we do, how do we make sure we're ahead of the ball as much as possible because we started early. So in this past 14 months, it's just been an incredible, incredible team effort. Across the department, our staff have stepped up in just amazing ways, and Colorado Proud is one of those areas, but then across our community of food and agriculture as well. So when we're talking about supply chain issues, our markets team was scanning the horizon, addressing supply chain issues where we can, fixing problems quickly, really being nimble. But we were also focused on advancing our promotion of Colorado Ag. As Elizabeth mentioned, retail and food service food service shut down overnight, pivoted the majority to, you know, grocery sales. So how do you, working back through the supply chain, how do you start reckoning with that pretty much overnight? So that was a lot of the work our team did, developing new markets, communicating with consumers. Those lines of communication were huge. That has been a huge focus for us. A primary focus is making sure that our customers and our community know what's going on, know what we're doing, know what services and programs they have to access, and know that the State Department of Ag, our shop, and our 300 staff are working every single day to not only get the word out, but make sure that we are opening up business, opening up marketing, getting product to consumers, and pivoting quickly to solve problems and set us up well for the future.
Awesome, very well said. Thank you, Commissioner. Well, thank you all the panelists for sharing your stories of what you learned this past, pandemic year. We'll begin the question and answer portion of the roundtable now. So we'll start with some of the questions that came from the RSVPs, and we encourage you to submit your own questions in the chat box, and we'll be able to read through some of those towards the end. So we'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can during this hour. For those questions that can't be answered today, we will have a full Q&A on our website in the coming days, so look for that. Let's start off with Kate. There is a bill making its way through the legislature that would appropriate significant funds for Colorado Proud promotion. What strategies is the CDA exploring, and how might members have a voice in that plan?
This is one of many stimulus pieces of legislation that are moving through the Colorado General Assembly right now as we speak. Danielle and Tom Lepetsky and our markets team have just done an incredible job advocating, again, for those recovery dollars, those stimulus dollars, because we know marketing is a key tool to drive agriculture and food systems into the future. So one thing that we've done to date, we have started sort of an early stakeholder process with an online survey asking for input, with a significant cash infusion to our Colorado Proud marketing program. Where can we get the biggest bang for our buck? Where can we really drive a return for producers and for small businesses across food and agriculture? So that survey is not the end. We want to keep hearing from you. You all know who to reach out to with ideas, but we welcome ideas. As we shepherd this bill and others through the legislative session, this one is actually very close to the finish line. We're going to need to make sure that we are listening as much as possible. It's going to be a very quick deployment of funds because they are stimulus dollars. We're trying to stimulate the economy. So we're really going to need to lean on you, our Colorado Proud members and businesses, to get that insight and make sure we do as good a job as possible of getting those funds out to the world.
Absolutely. We definitely love hearing from the folks that we try to help every day. Thank you. Elizabeth, how can a local food business create connections that build relationships between the farmers, retailers, and consumers and ultimately boost sales?
At Local Foods, we know most about the connections between a lot of our producers and our wholesale buyers. And we encourage folks, especially when they're new and they're starting their company, to take a lot of time to go and spend time talking to potential wholesale buyers, whether that's an independent grocery store, a coffee shop, a local restaurant, and really get an understanding of what those buyers are looking for in your product, in the business's product, and kind of figuring out what that packaging is going to look like, what the pricing is going to need to look like. Because we have found that for what we do, for what Local Foods does, is we're really good at, once folks really understand what their product is, we're good at getting it, taking it to market and then growing the rest of that market. So once it's really an established product. When we first started, we thought that we could really help folks figure out what a lot of those pieces were. And we found that that wasn't really what we were really good at. And so we encourage folks to have a little bit of wholesale distribution under their belts, and then we help them grow from there. But one of the things that's really important as you're getting started and figuring out what customers want is being able to be flexible and to really be able to listen to what they are asking you for. And just because that's what they're asking for doesn't mean that's what they will ultimately purchase or what they will ultimately really get behind as far as buying a product. But being open to that and being ready to change packaging, make sure that your labels are correct and accurate, and follow all the rules that they need to follow. And making sure that your product is in a size that is also appealing for wholesale producers. We have vendors who have started with things that are in like 100 count cases all the way down to like a 2 count case. And so really you need to be aware of what your wholesale buyers are really looking for. And if you're looking at a grocery store, you probably want, like a 6 to 12 count case. And so understanding where a lot of those pieces go is what we're the best at. We are interested in figuring out how we can help a lot of our vendors incorporate a lot more Colorado local ingredients into their products. And I'm open to ideas if anyone has any great ideas. But that's kind of where we are in a lot of those pieces.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I always feel that LoCo has been such a great partner when we work with small businesses trying to get to that next step. And you guys definitely are always open to talking to folks. So we appreciate that. Chef Jason, how can we help farmers and producers promote their products and tell stories through community partnerships? Any other strategies you could suggest?
You know, it's getting them familiar with that technology and how people crave it. It's finding ways to get that message onto the digital platform of your phone, of your iPad. And I think maybe a little bit of it has to do with breaking down barriers. You know, it's tough because, gosh, our farmers and ranchers and producers do such an amazing job, but are constantly scrutinized and beat up for doing that amazing job. So I don't blame them for wanting to fly under the radar and to hang out in a pasture with their animals. Heck, I'd rather hang out in a pasture with animals sometimes, but what we have to teach them is how to break that barrier down and to really build that comfort level up, to get out in front of it, to be able to tell their story and to be able to be good stewards of promoting what they do. I think that's so important because, you know, I think in the beginning there may be a few negative comments that may come in, but it's learning how to deal with those and how to shift and how to adapt and move and ebb and flow. But telling the story is crucial. It is so important because in the absence of a story, there's scrutiny. And I think being able to get out there, just teaching them, hey, we want to show, like, I want to go down to the valley and I want to take pictures of potatoes being planted, and I want to see what they're growing and new species they're doing, and I want to see storage potatoes, and I want to see that entire process so that we're able to talk to consumers and make it relatable. Hey, this is where your food comes from. This is how these amazing folks are getting it done. And yes, you've heard about storage potatoes. Boom, here they are. It's almost like helping them build their brand and making it so cool and so fun, because naturally people want to be a part of something fun. And I think the more we can help naturally make it fun, it's just easy for them to promote their products. It's about storytelling. It's about building their brand. We always talk about building your brand as you, the person, like who is going to be the representative of the brand, and then building that brand and staying true to what your brand is. Again, they do such a great job. It's getting out there and telling it. It's being involved. You know, I'll use potatoes as an example again. Went down to the valley and we did a drive-up baked potato bar because we couldn't do the Harvest Festival. How do we adapt, shift gears, and do something different? And it became a drive-through baked potato bar, which it was amazing because it helped tell the story. It showed how they were still being involved in the community. There was a lot of pride and love and community stewardship that went into that process, but it was such a feel good at the end of the day that it made it, like it made this impact. And now it's how to keep your cadence strong so that you're continually doing that. It's not throw things up against the wall once, see what sticks, and then never do it again. It's continually keeping that cadence up, whether it's social media posts, whether it's awareness, so that you're always front of mind for your consumers. Then there's no questions about what are you doing or what are you involved in or this, that, and the other. It's just that beautiful, like you blend in and become a part of the daily story of life.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chef Jason. And like you said, don't let someone else fill in the blanks for you. Fill in those blanks and let people know what's going on. Definitely. Yep. So we just want to remind everyone before we go to Kate that if you still have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. This is your opportunity to have some great people answer those burning questions that you have. So back to Kate. Will the CVA invest in the infrastructure needed to grow small food businesses owned by diverse groups, such as women, Black, Indigenous, and people of color?
Yeah, this has been a focal point of ours, again, through the recovery kind of effort of our COVID response over the last year. I think a lot of the breakdowns that we saw and bottlenecks and actually continue to see supply chain processing, kind of the middle of the supply chain, right? And we saw that, I think, most notably on the meat processing side last year. Everyone was impacted by that, not just folks in food and ag, but of course consumers as well. When they went to the grocery store and didn't have all their choices of cuts last year, which really hits home. So we've known that processing has been a bottleneck even before COVID. And especially as livestock producers in particular, I'll just take them as an example, are looking to expand markets. We also need to figure out what that infrastructure investment in the middle of the supply chain looks like for that diversification, for resilience, and by which I mean if one facility goes down, the industry doesn't go down, we have other options. And also thinking about rural economic development. So how can processors help bring jobs and economic activity into our rural communities that are in such bad need of that kind of economic input? So where we're working on this, a number of places, again, back to the legislature, we have been working with legislative leadership on a number of stimulus proposals, one of which is actually a revolving loan fund. The loan fund is actually set at $30 million right now. This would go to invest in processing and in farmers and ranchers. So a pretty broad financing mechanism to really hit this question of diversification, resilience, and rural economic development. As a reminder, the bill is not done, so lots can change, but that's where a lot of the thinking is right now. In addition, we're also thinking about opportunities in federal stimulus. As you know, the guidance came out this week. Again, a lot remains to be seen, but the conversations as they're going continue to revolve around the fact, you know, in my mind at least, and I hope in others, that agricultural infrastructure is infrastructure. So when we think about roads and highways and bridges, and we think about broadband, we also got to think about our food supply chain, or chains rather, and that diversification, resilience, and rural economic development.
Your resilience is such an important part of every industry. Back to Elizabeth. How are large online grocery delivery services impacting small food businesses? Can you speak from your own experience at Loco Food?
Yeah, we're still kind of seeing how a lot of that's going to impact us. We are in a lot of the larger chains, Whole Foods and Safeway and Natural Grocers and Sprouts. And we've been working on making sure that the products that we take to those chains are available for their online shopping. And it's been a steep learning curve. And as we kind of learn about those things, they seem to change. So we are not experts on that. And a lot of our contacts at the grocery stores also don't seem to be experts on that. And so figuring out kind of where to find all those pieces and keep them current has been a really interesting process. And our chain grocery manager has been amazing at pulling a lot of those pieces together and making sure that the products that we are taking are being included in the online ordering options. And what's really interesting is how the online ordering options really changes by your zip code. So yeah, so I don't have a great answer for it. It's something that we've been really kind of concerned about watching it go, because we think more and more people are going to be doing online shopping and making sure that they have local options, and that their local options aren't only for when you're in store shopping and suddenly see it there in front of your face. That's will always be important, and that's key, but understanding how all the different processes work, because sometimes there are third-party options like Shopify, no, Instacart, all of them, it's all the things. And so making sure that our products are available through those options as well has been, well, and I think will continue to be an ongoing concern, really, and how we keep making them available.
Yeah, shopping online for groceries is definitely not going away, and definitely kind of a fly by the seat of the pants. I think everyone was learning this whole year, so you just have to keep moving with it.
Yep.
Chef Jason, you talked about the difference between pivoting and adapting to survive the pandemic. Can you elaborate on that and describe how you approached the concept in your own business?
Sure. You know, I always think of pivot like from Friends, right? Where they're trying to move the couch steps. And if you think of that simplistically, they are going one way and they shift and turn and go another way. And I think I don't necessarily use pivot. It's not a bad word. I just don't use it because to me, it's more of adapt. I want to stay in the same lane and learn how to adapt as to what's coming towards me and how we can continue to move down that same path, consistently adapting, but almost like putting more stuff in the back of the pickup to carry along us with the way. It's like more tools in the toolbox. You know, Elizabeth talked about the online shopping. It's not going away. And now as a chef and what I do for Ace Hardware and as a consulting side, I'm trying to find ways that we can continue to deliver an amazing food experience. How do we adapt and give them more content teaching them how to cook? How do we adapt and give the grocery chains an opportunity for some training? Because I did a little Facebook study, very, very crude study with my friends and family and the people on my Facebook page. And I said, when you Instacart shop, do you trust that Insta shopper to pick out meat products? And what would it take to have them be able to pick out a meat product for you? And people said, chicken and pork, I'm not worried about because I can click the box and pick it. But I wouldn't trust them to pick a steak or a cut of meat that I was using for a big event. And for us, it's like, okay, interesting, because now we have to find ways to see how maybe the beef industry could work with grocers to give them some training to be able to say, hey, we are now certified to pick out a great cut, really giving customers, because you know it's a convenience and everyone loves that convenience. But now to be able to grow the depth of the beef and pork and even pork and chicken and fish and seafood, now to be able to train those associates and give them some better tools on how to pick out your food, I think is a huge win for everyone. It's a win for ag. I think it's a win for those businesses. So, you know, we adapted along the way just with, you know, we had consulting services and I was a chef and I cooked in hardware store parking lots. We learned very, very rapidly. We needed to offer more. We needed to do more digital content. We needed to figure that out. You know, in the middle of the pandemic, I was fortunate enough to be able to hire. So now there's two of us that continually can create that content. And it's great because people are coming to us saying, we need help storytelling. We need help doing the content. And the beautiful thing about it is we've done it from an organic standpoint. We're not big production. We're not going to charge you $20,000 to shoot a video. We want to do it organic and grassroots because the consumer sees past the gimmicks and the sales pitches. Really, at the end of the day, they just want, you know, someone they can relate to and someone they can cook to. So we've had to adapt to that, you know, very rapidly. We've had to adapt with, you know, how do we grow our inventory? Because obviously the demand on our inventory is 3 to 4 times greater than it's been. So we adapted from a financial standpoint of, okay, let's hoard money. Let's go out and seek opportunities to get some support through, you know, whatever COVID aid is out there, whether it's EIDL loans or PPP or whatnot. We found ways to do that to aid in the growth of our inventory. And it became, you know, I think actually, honestly, the adaptation of our business made us better at who we are, taught us how to preserve our cash better, taught us how to use our resources and our talents better, but then allowed us, it's like going to a restaurant and you walk up and the server says, we don't do this, we don't do this, we don't have this, and we're out of this. I look at that as from our business saying, we still do everything. Maybe we don't promote the things we don't want to do, but we don't ever say we don't do it. Now we're out there focusing on, did you know we can do this, we can make this, we can do that. So people are like, wow, like how many people do you have working for you? Because this is massive and it's a business of 3. So yeah, I just like, pivot's not a bad word. I just love to use adapt. It's almost like buy-in and commitment. You know, I don't like buy-in necessarily because I feel like you're trying to force people to feel and think what you think. I want their commitment towards a common goal. And I look at adapt and pivot the same way. Like we're going to adapt, but the commonality of what we do is always going to stay the same.
Very well put. And yes, I think there's a big difference between pivoting, adapting, and I think adapting goes hand in hand with being resilient. So it all ties in very nice.
Resilient, you know, honestly, during COVID too, we've been listening to a lot of podcasts and there's a resilient series out there from Guy Raz on how I built this. And it's just amazing. It has been such an inspirational tool for me. You know, we spend a lot of windshield time when we drive through the nation doing what we do, and being able to listen to those podcasts and hear, you know, Peloton and to hear Chilowich and some of the other businesses, how they persevered and how they did things. Super, super cool. So
yeah, very true. All right, Commissioner, during the pandemic, we saw a shift in consumer behaviors that prioritize buying local and supporting local food businesses. How can we sustain that attitude among Colorado consumers well beyond the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to lean on Chef Jason and Elizabeth and others out there for starters. But, you know, this has been a big question of ours at the department as we saw the spike in, you know, in demand last year for local. You know, you see empty shelves and you think, wow, I really should get to know a farmer, right? And have that relationship. We want to nurture that relationship without a global pandemic being the cause. And, you know, I think, Chef Jason, you said, you know, commitment rather than buy-in, right? We're working toward a common goal. And I think that has really become a focus of ours at the department more so than ever, is that, you know, we are not just here to serve agriculture, we are here to serve the state of Colorado. And by strengthening agriculture, by diversifying, by investing in local businesses, in connecting people in a meaningful way to communities they're not a part of, and rural and agricultural communities, and seeing sort of the shared goals that we have and the shared opportunities. I hope that that will help authentically translate into new business and new markets and a new customer base. Danielle, I wanted to touch on too a previous question you had asked about serving small businesses led by people of color, women, veterans, other underserved, or you know, business owners who don't have access to resources in the same way. That is a big part of our thinking, as you know, on a lot of this work, especially where we as a department are going to be responsible for administering grants and potentially loans. So that is another place we certainly invite feedback. We are on a journey of learning how to do this work equitably and do it better and better each time. And we really are committed to learning how to do that. So as we think about how we administer this work, but also how we connect communities, that question of equity, that question of bringing people together, the question of, you know, how do we get people's hearts in it, right? Because your food is such an intimate question, what we buy and where we buy it and who grows and raises it and gets it to us. And, you know, for the other side of this is we're dealing with significant food insecurity. We had that before the pandemic, and it has just skyrocketed in the pandemic. And so I think another really important question, and a question for small businesses as well as the state, is how can we connect this, you know, this drive for diversification and strengthening of our marketplaces with a drive to get safe, healthy food, fresh food to people who really need it. And we've seen that come up through the pandemic, just through people's own compassion and desire to help our neighbors. But we've got to keep focused on that question, as we have with the Food Pantry Assistance Grant. Colorado Proud has been a big partner in connecting Colorado producers with food pantries, making sure people not only have access to food, but access again to safe, healthy, and fresh food.
Absolutely, very important. And I will say that I'm working under you, Commissioner Kate, and for the CDA, it's so nice to see that it is at the top of the priority list, and I couldn't be prouder to be working towards some of those goals. So I appreciate that. Let's go to Elizabeth. What are the challenges of carrying perishable and short shelf life products in retail, the retail environment, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, that's a big one. So we have found that one of the best ways to deal with it and to effectively to be able to carry really perishable products over the long term is to have a volume market for it. So if you have something where you just need one case here and maybe another case over there next week, it's really, really hard to keep that product in your catalog, available for whenever somebody suddenly wants it, because then you have to go and get it specifically for each order. And so volume, when you have a product like we just brought on Origin Milk, and they are at such a volume that we take so much of it to all the Whole Food stores that when we start to offer it to some of our independent markets as well, there is enough volume, there's enough in the fridge at any given time that we're able to support all of those customers. And so there is an upper limit. Obviously, you get to a place where there's an upper limit, but making sure that you have enough volume to serve all the people who suddenly want one. It's not that you have to go get it for each individual person because you have enough, because you know that you're going to go through it. And so you're comfortable ordering enough for enough folks. So for us on the perishable products thing, it really is about volume. The other piece that's really important for perishable products is making sure that you have a really good system for fulfillment. And so if we're going to order it on Fridays so that we can pick it up on Mondays so that we have all week to deliver it before it's left in the fridge over the weekend, before we start delivering again on Monday, it's really important to have those logistics worked out with our producers so that we really understand what the how the process is going to go and how the logistics are going to work out throughout the week. So those are kind of the two big pieces, is really making sure you have a good market for it so that when it becomes available, you have enough to make it so that you are a reliable source for that product. No one likes wanting to order something and then you've been saying, hey, we're going to have this special thing, and then they go to order it and you're like, oh, I had 2 of them and I gave it, you know, I've already delivered them, or oh, I have to go get them and it's going to take forever, and then it's no fun for anybody. So really it's a volume, and then it's making sure that your logistics are set out ahead of time.
Sounds like no small feat. I apologize.
Yeah, I was so worried that I was the one muted that whole time.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're only 400 days into this.
We're all waving at you like, turn your mic on, turn your mic
on. So the last question before we go to answering the live Q&A questions that have been submitted in our chat box, this one will be for Jason. So how have you made your business visible online or adapted to meet growing demand for e-commerce? I know this is a point of passion for you, the e-commerce section of life.
Yeah, you know, e-commerce was never a big driver of ours. It wasn't something that we sought out, because my end goal through partnerships that I have with my retailers was to make sure we always drove people back to those retail environments, because that helps everyone in the food chain, right? We all have to eat in the food chain. So what I loved about that is we didn't go out of our way to promote e-commerce, because we wanted footsteps into stores, which helped sustain stores revenues, but it helped distribution, everything. So that was always our common goal. Obviously in the COVID world, people they want to shop at home, right? And we want to be there to help them. We've just done more awareness on our social channels. You know, we've done things like meet our grills or meet our barbecue products. We've just tried to get a little bit of awareness out there. And we've also told people too, shipping is what it is. So if you know, we keep our prices the same online as they are in the retail environment, so that there's never that cannibalization of retail sales for our own benefit. It's just not how I'm wired, right? Like, I'm smart enough as a business owner to understand we all have a place at the table, and that's how it works. So we made sure to remind people, hey, you can totally order it online. Yeah, I understand shipping is $14 or $18. However, did you know we have curbside availability at such and such? So we always had those like in the back of our mind if we ever got complaints about shipping prices and things, we were able to really help them through that process. But it's just visibility, awareness. We made sure now as we shot food photos, because we've become more adapted more to having more food photography, we included our products in those food photos so they could see, if I had a picture of a beautiful juicy pork chop or a steak, grilled potatoes, whatever, the product we used was in the picture so that they could easily see, oh man, that baked potato looks amazing. And it looks like he used those products. Just building awareness, building that stuff, building the brand identity stronger, and then making sure our shopping cart through WooCommerce or whoever we use was totally dialed in, because I didn't want people to get in and have a bad experience and then we would lose that transaction, because potentially that frustration would be, I'm not going to go to the retail environment and get it, and I'm not going to get it online. I'm going to just be done and I lose a transaction. So we made sure that was fun and exciting as well. And then being able to hire someone, literally, we can fulfill. I mean, we've had days where if someone ordered at 8 o'clock in the morning, it was packed, labeled, shipped, and out the same day. So we tried to be really, really fast to get it in people's hands. And then, you know what? I started 2 years ago with a handwritten card. So in all of our packages that go out, we just have a handwritten card. Thank you for your business. Printed on one side, colorful. We write a little handwritten note, happy cooking, thanks for your order. And then we try, to add little things in there from time to time. Like if we have a good repeat customer, we might throw them an extra bottle of product or a bag of caramels or something just to reward them for that. And then I'll tell you, we honestly did not ever do any price reductions because we didn't want to devalue our prices. We wanted to keep them at what they were. And we did little extras in there. Like, if you ordered this much, we'd give you a free something so we added value versus reduce the price of our product. So again, it's just brand awareness, brand identity, and then, having a good cadence. So you're always, the more you have a cadence in your social posts, you always stay up there higher on everybody's views. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I like that you weren't devaluing your products. I think that's important. And you learn to give consumers other ways to feel like they're getting more out of it and staying connected with you. The handwritten notes is a really, really good move.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to move over to some of the live question and answers that we've had submitted the questions, and we'll go from there. And so this is more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of portion of it, which is exciting. Okay. So I'm thinking that we are going to send this question to Kate. What is the best way for young, small businesses to connect and learn about the nitty-gritty of the food supply chain in Colorado and identify opportunities for helping improve resilience? For example, technology solutions for reducing food waste. That's a big question.
Oh, I love that question because it goes back to the relationships and the shared commitment and the sense of mutual understanding, sort of all of those strictly business things that we're talking about today. A few things come to mind initially. If you're already, a food or ag business and looking to build sort of more of your knowledge base or relationships, getting in the field, whatever that means for what you're trying to expand. So getting onto a farmer ranch. There are so many ways to do that. Colorado Proud is a great way to have that conversation, being a part of a CSA personally and meeting farmers or ranchers that way, or looking at procurement for, from local producers that will help you build that direct relationship. On the supply chain side, there's so many ways to learn about what our current structure is and systems are and what, a future might be. And that can be reading and research and, working on your computer online. But the best is to talk to people. And there's so many different businesses along the supply chains that we have here in Colorado for food and ag. I think reaching out, I think there's a hunger for people to be heard and understood. And I would say if you're a small business who's looking to increase your relationship with agriculture and the food and ag supply chain, and you cold call a farmer or rancher or a local business and say, hey, I'm excited about what you do. I want to learn more and I want to be part of this community with you. Chances are, I think you're going to be well received and have an opportunity to really nurture and grow that relationship.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you. And also just for everyone's information, if you are a small business and you do want to learn specifically about the nitty gritty of retail, we actually had a great webinar last year with a former natural grocers buyer, and she went into very detailed explanations of how's the best to get your product in front of the buyer's eyes. So you might want to check that out on our coloradoproud.org page under Watch Again. So this next question that we have from the chat is for Elizabeth. Do you have any tips for startup food businesses?
We do. We actually do a lot with small food businesses all the time. And we've actually developed a food vendor portal on our website. And so we ask that folks reach out to us, and then we have a little password and all the things that kind of gives you a decision tree on how to know for us when you as a small business are ready for wholesale distribution. But before wholesale distribution, it's kind of back to what I was talking about earlier, where we encourage folks to talk to their potential customers to really get a grip on what their packaging should be, what their case size should be, what their labels should look like, and also, what our vendors what are wholesale buyers really looking for if you're looking for wholesale sales? We've seen a lot of vendors who have started off in farmers markets and really have done a lot of kind of market research, if you will, just by selling products there and getting an understanding of what really works and what folks like about their products. I think that a lot of times that face-to-face marketing opportunity is a great way to get really honest feedback from people about what they like and what they don't like about a given product. So we've seen that work really nicely. And then also for small food businesses, we really encourage folks to try out and do a lot of their wholesale distribution first on their own. We are set up to really take folks in in order to, reserve warehouse space and all the pieces in our warehouse. We are looking for folks who are at a size and where they need wholesale distribution help. And so a lot of times what folks do is they do their own distribution for a long time until they just can't do it anymore. And we encourage folks to because when you're starting something, you kind of do all the different pieces. And then when you get to a place where you can't do the distribution anymore, we're really happy to help folks do that. The other thing that we help folks do as well is get into a lot of the chains as well. So I think that was probably Debbie Knapp who did the webinar that you were talking about for natural grocers, and she is a wonderful, wonderful resource. And we as well do a lot of the brokerage for getting folks into stores that are going to be a good fit for them. Some products, are going to be a great fit for natural grocers, but not necessarily for Safeway, or vice versa. And so we do a lot of that for our vendors as well once we feel like they are ready. And one of the things that we do actually for our grocery store partners is really make sure that we're offering products that we think will be able to meet the quantity requirements and the consistency requirements that are really needed to have a good hold on the market, because we want to make sure that when folks are buying local products at a grocery store, they are reliable, good products. We want to make sure that that's a consistent thing and folks don't get an unfortunate taste in their mouth around those things. So yeah, that's some of the stuff we have for small businesses, and we're happy to chat with folks as well.
Yes, awesome. I do love that you have a decision tree and some other resources folks can, get a hold of if they want to reach out and contact you guys. So that's great. Yep. All right, Jason, with starting your own company and own brand, what needs did you see in the market and how did you decide to fulfill those needs?
I saw a need for, I want to not tiptoe around this, but I saw a need for good barbecue products. Right there, I said it, right? So I wanted to focus on lower sodium. I'm really a true believer of connecting people to the food they eat. I wasn't looking for a barbecue product that when you used it on a piece of chicken, steak, pork chop, whatever, your response to us was, best rub I've ever had, because it told me we were doing a bad job. I wanted you to say, man, I used your product on XYZ, best ribs I've ever had, best steak, best chicken, because it told me that what we did was created a product that allowed them to get better connected to their food and get that like umami. Your eyes roll back in your head and you're like, oh, that was the best chicken leg I've ever had. That is what we wanted to do, because we're like technicians of flavor. We wanted to make sure the flavors were right, the sodium was low. We didn't add any garbage, no artificial ingredients, no binders, fillers. I mean, yeah, I'm not worried about giving you a bottle of rub. Hold on, I'll make it look bigger. I'm not interested in giving you a bottle of rub this big for $3 that I fill with junk. I wanted to give you a smaller bottle that was impactful, had great flavor, less is more kind of deal, that allowed you to just go, man, I want to put this on everything. Made your broccoli taste better. It made everything taste better. So we had that like business plan, right? That food idea business plan in our head. And we just wanted to be different. We wanted to be a differentiator, a disruptor. I didn't want to be an off-the-shelf brand. I wanted to be chef-crafted, small batch produced. And we were able to translate that from, 3 local stores to 15 local stores to 50 regional stores to thousands of hardware stores. And now, we still are able to maintain that chef-driven experience where, yeah, I mean, if you want the run-of-the-mill everyday product that is sold at every gas station or whatever, not us. I'm sorry, it's just not us. But if you want differentiated flavors that when people are eating at your house, they're like, oh my word, yeah, we wanted to be that business. So, I mean, that from the spice side, that was it. And then again, on the consulting side, differentiators, you know, I'm a obnoxious, speak my mind kind of dude. So we wanted to bring that authenticity forward in what we do, not to be argumentative or badgering, but we wanted to be a thought provoker, to be able to get people to think outside of the norm, to be a little bit different, to help craft a story that, you know, translated really nice from the pasture to the plate, so to speak, and just be different. And you know what, we really work hard to stay true to who we are. It's not about, you know, having our hands in 85 different things that we don't do well. It's about having our hands in fewer things that we can do really, really well.
Totally agree. And yeah, that's great. As part of crafting your brand, you really have to know what you're trying to say. And your example is perfect for our listeners to hear that you figured out exactly what you were doing and you went with it and it served you well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. This question is for Kate. How can CDA or other groups help raise awareness about the pitfalls posed by consolidated supply chains in Colorado? Specifically, how can public and philanthropic groups help bring and balance back to the marketplace and prioritize supporting food and farm businesses who reflect the resilient, equitable food economy we've been talking about in this webinar?
Yeah, big questions. Well, two of them in there. So the first one, you know, I think if you look to CDA just as an example, because so many people are working on this question of supply chain resilience and diversification. But if you look at what we're trying to do as a state agency, and we were doing this before COVID, but COVID hit the gas pedal in a lot of ways. Colorado Proud, again, I mean, a shameless plug because we're here and because the program is really doing amazing work in, similar to Chef Jason, thinking about where consumers are and how habits and purchasing have changed in the last year. So how we can help build that bridge to reaching consumers where they are now rather than where they were 15 months ago. When it comes to the question of consolidation, as I mentioned before, everybody felt it last year. So those of us in food and ag can study this and research it and talk all about the policy. But for consumers, right, as long as the food system's working, you might not know anything about it. But the second you don't get that cut of meat that you're looking for because that shelf is empty, it leads you back to the question of how on earth did that shelf get empty. So in some ways, COVID did it for us. And I think now the opportunity is, back to your previous question, is to really solidify that relationship to local food. And what that does is, in my mind, it drives the middle of the supply chain. I mean, you can't do one without the other. And we think about this when we think about our infrastructure investments. We don't want to be driving infrastructure investments for small and mid-scale processing facilities without driving market access. If you build it and they don't come, you're going to be really sad that you built it, right? So we're doing both at once and really tying that supply chain with the marketing. Now, on the second half of the question of, you know, how philanthropic groups can bring balance back to the marketplace and support food and farm businesses, you know, in my mind, it's sort of approaching the same system from whatever angle you're starting with. So, you know, marketing, infrastructure, and the third leg of the stool we've been talking a lot about is jobs development, is actually workforce, supporting the workforce to be trained and skilled in working in food and ag. So if you're a philanthropic organization and you're looking for where to invest your money, you know, maybe thinking about facilities that are going to be expanding job opportunities in the food and ag sector with goals that align with yours, whether that's diversification of market access, whether that goes back across the supply chain toward regenerative ag or conservation or climate mitigation. There's a lot moving in that regards across supply chains as well, in addition to the market developments around sort of those conservation goals. So I think wherever your starting place is, there's a way to enter and then sort of as a community drive forward that, I'm going to say it again, diversification, resilience, and rural economic development.
Absolutely. Very well put. Thank you. Okay, so as we wrap things up, we have time for one final question for every one of our panelists. And so Elizabeth, we will start with you. Is there anything you learned during the pandemic that you would do differently if, heaven forbid, we have another pandemic someday?
You know, I think that we were really fortunate in that we were already focusing on grocery stores. If I would almost say, so we signed a lease for a new space in February of last year, and that worked out really, actually it worked out well. We really did need that space, and we really had grown out of our old space, so it was a good thing that we ended up moving. And so I think that it's always important to learn from the things that have been happening. But I feel like I feel like in this case, we were really fortunate in that we were focused on grocery, but I think that if something like this were to happen again, because you know, no disaster is the same way twice. I think for us, we probably need to be thinking about how we diversify and really do add more in the way of food service, even though that's not the area that was that would have been good for us to be in this time around. I think that just generally having a diverse portfolio of who all you work with and who all both on your supply side, but also on your customer side, I think that's always really important.
Great. All right, Chef Jason.
Yeah, if we go through this again, I'm going to have, I think only half my beard was gray. So I don't know what, I think I may have one little spot that may gray out, but you know what it taught us really was how to run a better business. I mean, we adapted wonderfully. We added more components to what we do, but it helped us sharpen the saw and realize where we could trim the fat, how we could run better, how we could hoard cash, how we could really focus. You know, we didn't, if you know, let's say charcoal, we didn't need 20 bags of charcoal on the shelf that we had to outlay cash for. We could get by with 2 or 4. It just taught us how to act differently, spend differently, and just utilize our resources better. If it were to happen again, I mean, it would give us an opportunity to look again at what we do. I mean, it would say, what can we add to make this bigger, better, to adapt and thrive and grow? And then how can we spend less money, you know, doing what we do? We try to, you know, look at, I mean, if we looked at insurance and we went through the whole gamut of our business expenses, you know, how do we look at those again and see if there's consolidation opportunities? And, you know, I'm not looking to save $20. You know, I'm looking to make impactful savings that are, you know, wasteful. Obviously, if you have 100 things that are $20, you're wasting, that adds up. But I'm looking at low hanging fruit and the fruit on the top of the tree to see how we can do it better. So hoard cash. Cash is king. That's what they say.
That's right. All right. And finally, Commissioner Kate.
Oh man, it's a big question for this past year. I mean, I personally learned more than I think I even know. And I think as a team at CDA, one thing that we absolutely learned is how much we can step up to meet the demands of something crazy that we didn't know was going to come our way that just suddenly did. And COVID was not the only sort of statewide crisis we were dealing with simultaneously last year, and we were responding to wildfires at the same time. We had mysterious packets of seed being shipped to people's houses around the state. That happened at the same time. But COVID had really brought us to a place where we had developed an internal response infrastructure that was nimble and coordinated and relied on people's strengths. And I think in looking back, that was just, it made all the difference, the way our team stepped up, the way that we communicated with our stakeholders and customers and constituents, and then had that two-way communication, really listened, really learned, responded, and communicated with each other. So if we go through this again, I'm with you, Chef Jason, the gray will really be coming on strong, but I think we've got structures in place we didn't have before. We've learned strengths about ourselves as individuals and teams that we didn't know we had before. And now, even in times of normalcy, you know, or non-crisis, I think we can lean on those strengths in ways that are just going to bring better work, better teamwork, better sense of community as we move ahead.
Great, thank you. we can't forget about the killer wasps either. Those snuck in there at some point, but glad we're at the end of all that. So we're at the time, we're at the end of our time for today. And so we want to thank all of our panelists for taking time out of their day to talk to our listeners here and just be able to share your experiences, which are very valuable. And I hope everyone who listened today, which we're also thankful for, got something out of it. I know we didn't get all the questions answered, but we will be answering more of them and sharing those on our website soon. So look for that. And then also keep an eye out for more information about other roundtables. We'll be having one in July with the same theme of growing, evolving, and thriving. And we'll be focusing on our farmers and ranchers. So we also have other events and resources from the Colorado Department of Agriculture. So always check our website for that. We're always trying to reach out and help everybody. And a recorded version of today's roundtable will be on our Colorado Proud website. So I just want to take the time to say thank you again. I really appreciate it. This is my first roundtable, and I am glad I got to share it with all of you. And have a great rest of the day. Enjoy that Colorado sunshine.